In emergency management, the definition of a stakeholder is any person or entity with a vested interest in the survival or recovery of a given community.
This is the Stakeholder Prepping podcast, where the tactical comes from the practical, and today, you become your own stakeholder.
Here are your hosts, Chris and AC.
Welcome back to Stakeholder Prepping, where you, yes, you are the stakeholder in your own survival. And I gotta say, we have a little bit of miscommunication when we say we'll post something. I kind of want to get this out there first thing on this episode, AC.
Yeah, I think so too, because people will ask us what we mean when we say that. So, yeah, why don't you clarify that?
Yeah, when we say we will post something, what we mean 99% of the time is we're going to put that information in the weekly blog, or it's going to be on the email blast that goes out. So if there's a product that we talked about or some good information that we said we'd post, we mean we put that in the blog. So every week we put up a new blog post at stakeholderprepping.com. It usually comes out within an hour or so of the episode dropping, because we've got those scheduled for 3 p.m. Central. And if you're listening, you already know that. But within an hour or so of that, we'll send out the email blast. Just kind of depends on what you've got going on throughout the day, AC, because I know you get busy and sidetracked so much.
Yeah.
You're the same as me.
I usually sit down and, eat my Cheerios and work on the blog and try to put all that stuff together on Sundays. So yeah, it kind of depends, but usually within an hour or so of the episode dropping, the blog goes out, and then anybody who's subscribed to our blog gets an email.
You're one of those guys who eats Cheerios with chopsticks, aren't you?
No, actually, that's kind of cool. I'm going to try. Wait, so when you say eat with chopsticks, do you mean like the traditional chopstick way, or do you like shove a chopstick through the hole?
I mean the traditional chopstick way.
That sounds tough. I would never get enough caloric intake doing it that way. There's no way.
So yeah, if you want us to email it to you, you can just sign up for it at stakeholderprepping.com. If you think you signed up but still haven't received a weekly blog, shoot us an email. Our email is stakeholderprepping@gmail.com. And if you just want to check in or ask us questions, we actually love listener interaction and feedback. So just shoot us an email anyways. And this episode is kind of a first for us at Stakeholder Prepping. This is a first of its kind 2-part episode. So I'm excited for this one. We're going to be busting some myths.
Yeah, this is a 2-parter. I remember like when Tupac put that first 2-part album out, that was such a big deal. Like no one ever done that before. So yeah, this is the 2-parter. And this is actually a listener request episode from our friend and famous preparedness author, Jennifer Rader. She wanted us to kind of do the myth busty episode, and we crowdsourced this. So there is a big Facebook page that's got over 300,000 people on it that is a prepper based Facebook page. And we asked people, what are the biggest prepper myths? And then people started to fight about it, because people would say, well, I think this is a myth that needs to go away. And then people would fight and say, no, that's not a myth. That's true. So that's why they made the list here. And we came up with 8 solid prepper myths that truly do need busting. And we're going to go 2 rounds on this one. So basically, we'll start with the kind of easier myths to bust, sort of the round 1, and then those that advanced to the second round, the ones where people really fought back on these and were really, really dug in, we'll do those for next week. So this is kind of a list episode. So we've got 4 of these on each episode. We'll go back and forth, Chris, but I think it's important that we spend a lot of time on each one of these, and we really take the opportunity to lay out all of our arguments that we have. And we really want you to walk away with solid intel on why these myths are busted. And we want to give you a ton of ammunition in case you find yourself in an argument with a fellow prepper friend. And we want to help you change some hearts and minds yourself. So, Chris, do you want to kick this off? We can just kind of go back and forth on these ones.
Yeah, that works for me because it's worked in the past and don't
Sure.
mess with success, right?
I
So I'll
like it.
go first. You mentioned ammunition, and we do want to make sure that you have plenty of logical ammo to go with. But speaking of ammo, I don't know if that was you foreshadowing AC, but that's actually my first one.
It's a bit of foreshadowing. Yeah, that came back in the prologue.
Woot woot. And this is a very common trope on the tactical side of prepping. The belief that a mountain of ammo makes you invincible. And while defense is a pillar of preparedness, the ammo only fallacy is one of the most dangerous traps a prepper can fall into.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I will say before you go any further, Chris, that some of these are kind of aggregated, right? This particular myth or fallacy, it may have been posed a number of different ways. Like this could be the all I need to stock is ammo and I can go take the supplies I want. Or it could have been simply the all you got to do is keep precious metals, brass and lead. Like it's some variation of that myth, right? That all I need is ammo and I can do anything else I need. So that was this myth. But yes, all of these are a bit aggregated in that. I mean, there may have been two or three different ways that people put it, but it's essentially the same myth. And this one is some variation of that fallacy. We'll call it the ammo only fallacy, but it could also be the I can take whatever I want if I got enough guns and bullets.
Yep. It's the bullet bully fallacy.
The bullet bully fallacy. Yeah, absolutely. So bust this one for us.
Yeah, I mean, in a long-term shit hit the fan scenario and any sort of over reliance on ballistics, it's usually just going to reveal a lack of understanding regarding how humans actually survive, right? And why focusing too much on lead and brass is a strategic downfall. There are several factors that go into this, but let's kind of break this one down step by step. One, you cannot eat bullets. You can one time, and that's it,
You can eat a bullet once. That's right.
right? And, the rule of threes that we come back to all the time. This is the most basic survival logic is the rule of threes. You can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Ammunition is not on that list. You can survive indefinitely without ammo, but a lot of people will disagree with me on that. And
Right.
most people, when they think about all I need is, a bunch of bullets, they're thinking that they're going to go be that raider and just take other people's supplies. Well, that's great in theory, except they probably have ammo too, and they have tactical advantage because you are the aggressor and they are in a defensible position. And can you really truly tell yourself that you will be mentally stable and okay after taking somebody's life and their supplies?
Right.
I,
Yeah. You're going to go shoot up a house because they had a better Costco membership than you. I mean, that is kind of crazy.
right. And see, I know you often like to look at these topics from kind of that business perspective, right? So let's talk about opportunity costs. Every $500 spent on a case of 5.56 is $500 not spent on a high quality water filtration system or deep pantry food like Vode's Preparedness, the 25-year shelf life foods, or heirloom seeds, or other really important things that we always talk about. Our list, besides protection or weapons, is always going to be food, water, shelter, warmth, sanitation or hygiene, and then mental or physical health. And all of those are equally important. So you're spending more than a seventh of your time, budget, and effort on ammo. You're probably overinsured in that category. And you you're going to die of dysentery before you go through your first case, you know?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you're focused. Yeah, I like what you said, overinsured, because we do talk about that a little bit. You prepping really is just insurance, but you need to be well rounded. And yeah, if you're spending, because all those things, I think all the 7 things you said are all equally as important. And if you're spending more than a seventh of your resources and time and energy and effort and training on bullets and guns, then you are overinsured in that category. And what that means is you are underinsured on those other categories.
Yeah, if you've got 10,000 rounds, but you only have 10 days worth of water, unless it is literally aliens coming down from the sky and you're burning through ammo, 1 round a second, you don't have a survival plan. You have a very expensive way to spend your last very thirsty hours. That's
Yep.
that's it.
That's a
Point
great way to put
blank.
it. Yep.
There's also the weight of it. And I don't mean the emotional weight. I don't mean the psychological weight. I mean the physical weight of bugging out with ammo. If you plan on bugging out, ammo is going to be your heaviest enemy. The math of lead here, a standard 50 round box of 308 Winchester 7.62 NATO weighs plus or minus 2.8 pounds, right? If you're trying to carry 1,000 rounds of various calibers, you're looking at 60 to 80 pounds of dead weight just in lead. That's not your water, your food, your shelter, your warmth, your anything else. That's just bullets is an extra 60 to 80 pounds. And mobility versus firepower, if you're over encumbered, it's just like playing Fallout. You're over encumbered and cannot run, right? You cannot
Yeah.
fast travel. um, but if you are over encumbered, you're going to be slow, loud, prone to joint injuries, and in a survival situation, the ability to move quickly and quietly, not attracting attention to yourself, can be a lot more life-saving than the ability to suppress a target, you know?
I like what you said about the weight there, the math of lead. So, uh, yeah, Chris, when you were in combat serving in the army, how heavy was your assault pack?
Let's see. I went from 153 pounds to 308 pounds when I put on my body armor and my assault pack.
Yeah. So let's say you've got, you had 150 pound useful load or something. Uh, so you're literally talking about 2,000 rounds. You could have carried 2,000 rounds. And instead, you carried all this other stuff. And that wasn't like an inch situation. That was like out on a mission situation. So if you think you're just going to go bug out and carry nothing but thousands of pounds of ammunition, it's not realistic. It's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
I was carrying 15 fully loaded magazines, couple grenades. I also had my M4 had a 203 grenade launcher on it, so I had ammo for that. I had Claymore. Uh, I had the radio for our sniper team. I was also the team medic, so I had all of the medical supplies.
Sure.
Um, it was heavy. So yeah, when I threw on my body armor and my assault pack, I went from 153 to 308. So 155 pounds in gear, not
Yeah.
including when I was carrying my M4, M9, M500, or the M107.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it gets pretty heavy pretty
And you didn't
quickly.
even mention food, but I'm guessing there was like one MRE or two MREs in there, right?
Yeah, one loaded Camelback and one MRE, and
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think from a math standpoint, from a weight standpoint, you sufficiently busted that you just can't go carry a whole bunch of bullets and that's all you need.
Yeah, and my knees will tell you the exact same story. The VA says it's not service connected, but that is what it is. But you do make yourself a high profile target risk when you're overloaded. You know, that mindset that I'll just take what I need because I have the guns. There's that I can't remember who said it first, but I have all of the guns and the money. Fuck off. Uh, that's just a fantasy that usually ends in a shootout you're not going to win. Remember our conversation like 2 weeks ago with Master Sergeant Colbert? Remember that? That guy's a combat veteran, and I mean, if we're flexing, yeah, he was awesome. But Brad had a movie made about his combat exploits. It was a series, Generation Kill. But he would never subscribe to that fallacy of you're just going to end up as a loot drop for somebody if you're carrying all ammo, and you're going to be a very resource rich loot drop, but that's it. Aggression breeds attrition. So if you use your ammo to take resources, you are engaging in high risk kinetic events. Even if you win 9 out of 10 fights, that 10th fight ends your story. You're done.
Yeah, and I like that what you said there, the aggression breeds attrition. It's like that is battlefield instant karma right there.
Mhm. Oh yeah. And think about the loud factor, right? Even with the suppressor, gunshots are like the ultimate dinner bell when it's this quiet, collapsed world. They signal to everyone within miles that you have something worth fighting for and that you are a threat that needs to be neutralized from a distance, right? And if you
Yeah.
neglect those soft skills and maintenance, focusing on stockpiling, it's going to come at the expense of skills. So, sure, you've got 150,000 rounds of 5.56. Can you use a pressure canner? Do you know how to identify a tension pneumothorax and treat it? Can you repair a solar inverter? What are you trading off for that 150,000 rounds that's just going to sit there more than likely until something happens and it's just taking up more space in the garage and you can't move it without a dolly, you know?
Yeah.
There's also there is the gear trap because that pile of ammo is static security. Dynamic security is having medical knowledge to stop a bleed or gardening knowledge to prevent scurvy. You know, you can grow your own limes and stop the pirates from attacking. You cannot shoot a bacterial infection or a crop failure. So there are some very serious trade offs you have to be focused on there. You can also use ammo as currency. So a lot of preppers were saying, I'll just use it for barter. It's tactically questionable because if you are arming your enemy, you know, trade 20 rounds of 9mm for a bag of flour, you potentially just handed someone the means to come back and take the rest of the flour they just gave you. Um, but there is a value gap because in a real crisis, a $1 bottle of antibiotics or a $5 manual can opener is likely going to have a higher trade value than a handful of cartridges, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. No, I was gonna say, yeah, the Maslow's hierarchy, that's a good one, right? We did talk about that where there's that sort of needs when it comes to sort of the mental and emotional fitness, but there's also that kind of that prepper's hierarchy of needs, right?
There is, and you've got tier one, which is your water, shelter, first aid, warmth. Tier two, which is your food production, storage, sanitation. Tier three would be your tools and community. And then down in tier four, that's your defense and ammunition. And the whole reason it's there is to just protect the first three. So if you don't have those first three already well established, why are you just jumping to four? And the harsh reality check here is that firearms are a veto tool. They allow you to say no to someone trying to harm you, but they are not a life support tool. A person with a rifle and no water is just a well armed corpse in waiting. Like we said, a loot drop.
Like that. Yeah, I think that is sufficiently busted. I don't know if it's just the Rambo persona or something, but I just always laugh when people just say, "Oh yeah, all I do is, stock guns and ammo and that kind of stuff." Because even if let's say that fallacy works. Like let's say that that's your plan is I'm just going to have a bunch of guns and ammo. I'm going to go murder all of my neighbors and take their stuff. Okay, let's say that actually works. Let's say you win 10 out of 10 times. Eventually you still run out of stuff, right? You haven't learned how to garden. None of that is a replenishable skill. You're not going to shoot your way into knowing how to be a doctor. You know what I mean? So even if that even if that fallacy works for you, it's not a long-term sustainable solution because you aren't creating anything. You're just you're just a locust at that point. So even locusts eventually run out of, things to pillage.
Then that's a very good point. You're going to piss off everybody around you and have a constant security threat, or you're going to kill everyone around you and not know how to do everything they could do. And then you're just going to die very, very alone with a lot of ammo.
Right, exactly. So I would like to say that one is busted. So for the next one, this is what we call sort of the lone wolf fallacy. And this is a staple of Hollywood movies and post-apocalyptic novels. But in the real world shit hits the fan scenario, it's often a recipe for a very short, very miserable story. And while the idea of not being dragged down by other people sounds appealing to like that fiercely independent, you know, human biology, it- the story honestly suggests otherwise. And so this myth is like that. I'll just go it alone. This is the lone wolf scenario, right? That I'm just going to go out by myself because other people are going to drag me down, and I'm just going to somehow be able to survive forever out in the forest. This is like that Book of Eli thing, And here's why the lone wolf strategy is a romanticized myth that usually just ends in disaster. The first one, 24-hour security, man, that is just a nightmare. In a true collapse, security isn't something you can just check once. It is a constant requirement. Humans have something called a sleep gap. And I don't know if you knew this, Chris, but people actually need to sleep every day or they will go crazy and then die. So a, a person needs 6 to 8 hours of sleep to function. You really do. And if we're talking about an SHTF scenario, that's not going to be great sleep either. So if you're alone, who's watching the perimeter? Who's listening for that snapped twig? You are 100% vulnerable for a third of your life. Isn't that crazy to think about? Those are bad odds.
Yeah,
So
that's not good.
and then you have this 360-degree blindness problem. You cannot watch the front door and the back window at the same time. You just can't. A small group can establish a watch rotation. A lone wolf eventually collapses from exhaustion. It's just a fact. And numbers always win. Even if you are a highly trained marksman, three people with mediocre skills will almost always flank, and they will overtake you. Remember we talked to Brad about this. I thought it was crazy because he's like, "Hey, even in my home, in my castle, I'm not going to go clear rooms. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to hardpoint because even a skilled marksman, two or three people are going to win every time." So
Oh, yeah. There's a book called Basher 5-2. Scott O'Grady was shot down in 1995 in Bosnia, F-16 pilot. I don't know if you've read this book or not, but he
no, I haven't, huh?
references all of this. He was shot down and spent 6 days running through the Bosnian wilderness. This is also the event that Behind Enemy Lines with
I
Owen
was gonna
Wilson.
say, this sounds like Behind Enemy Lines to me.
Yeah, that's partially based on a true story, but Scott O'Grady, he was down for 6 days in Bosnia doing long-term escape and evasion, and he referenced the sleep gap and how he made friends with a cow because the cow would just stand over him while he slept, and like, things like that, and
Sure.
you had to use his resources, or he had to use his resources in order to just survive. Can you imagine doing that when there is no infrastructure around?
No, no, and let's talk about that. Infrastructure is great. Let's talk about the medical game over scenario. In a stable society, a broken leg is an inconvenience. In an SHTF scenario, it's a death sentence for a loner. If you're alone, man, like Self-surgery, I think, is one of those myths that Hollywood just sensationalizes. Try stitching a wound on your own dominant shoulder or setting a compound fracture in your own leg while in shock. It is impossible. It just is. And there's this incapacitation factor. If you get a severe fever, food poisoning, a deep infection, you might be too weak to fetch water or stoke a fire. And without someone to hydrate you and keep you warm with just a minor illness, that easily becomes fatal. And then you go into the calorie deficit and labor trap. And let me explain this. Survival is exhausting. The amount of work required to maintain a primitive or off-grid lifestyle is more than one set of hands can manage. So you've got a divided focus when you do this. You need to hunt and gather. You need to process firewood. You need to garden. You need to fetch and purify water. You need to maintain your gear. So if you spend all of your day stalking deer, your garden goes unattended and your perimeter is unguarded. If you spend all day chopping wood, you aren't gathering food. So four people don't just do four times the work. They are a force multiplier. They do about 10 times the work because they can specialize. One person is good at cooking and mending. One person can hunt. Two people can go build a structure. So the multi person scenario is just better because it allows for specific skills among the group, and it truly is a force multiplier. Four people can do far more work um, than just four times more than one person. That's just a fact. And then there is psychological erosion, and I think a lot of people don't think about this, but we are social animals, and isolation isn't just lonely, it's neurologically damaging. It is bad for you. So without others to check your logic, there's something called cabin fever, and that is a real thing. And you should check that out because it really does make you go crazy. You can actually begin to hallucinate. You can succumb to paranoia. It can make you have sort of reckless tactical decisions because there's no one to say, "Hey, man, that's a bad idea." Um,
And that's why solitary confinement is so damaging to prisoners that end
oh,
up in ADSEG.
100%. Did you see Denzel Washington in the true story about the hurricane, right? He was the boxer and they
Well, yeah,
put him
yeah,
in
yeah.
solitary confinement. And in that, they showed that he was hallucinating. He was talking to himself. The guy went crazy because he was in solitary confinement. So that's exactly what you're doing to yourself, except you're not in a prison where you really can't die from outside factors. You're out in the wild where you need to be able to make tactically sound decisions. And you can't do that once that cabin fever sets in, once you don't have other people around to just to be social with. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's a real thing. And then when things get bleak, and they will, having someone just to share a joke with or offer a word of encouragement, it's just the difference between pushing through and giving up. Uh, and then we can give you kind of this really down and dirty quick comparison, but security. The lone wolf, you've got zero sleep, you're easily flanked. The group, 24/7 watch rotation is possible. The skill set, in the lone wolf, you are limited to what one person knows. Even if you know a lot of stuff, you're limited to what that one person knows. In a diverse group, one person may have been a mechanic or a gardener or a medic. So that's why I say that four people can do more than four times the work because they have more than four times those skills of that one person. And then resource use is one that people obviously think that, well, in a lone wolf, I'm very efficient. You are, but you're slow to gather. A small group, that 4 to 6 people, you've got high consumption, but you have even higher output. And then the mental health aspect we just talked about. You've got this very high risk of depression and paranoia if you're by yourself. And with a small group, You have this built-in support system. So here's the reality check. Throughout history, the humans who survive catastrophes were not the ones who ran into the woods alone. They were the ones who formed tight knit tribes. Community is the ultimate survival tool.
I completely agree with that. And it is good to go out on your own and test your own skill level
100%.
by
100%.
yourself.
Yeah.
Can I set up the tent by myself? Can I start a fire by myself? Can I do XYZ by myself? Do I have those skills? That just makes you a more well rounded individual. But even the guys on Delta, like the CAG level tier one operators, they can operate on their own, but most of the time they don't. They have a support network, they have their own team, they have a very, very close knit community that they're relying on. And that's why they are so dangerous and why they are their own force multipliers, is exactly what you were saying. They don't go lone wolf, even though those guys have the capability to.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking just from the mental aspect, I recently listened to an interview with Rob O'Neill, that he was the Navy SEAL who killed bin Laden. And he was talking about just going through buds and how just how terrible what they put the Navy SEALs through, and he was talking about being in a situation where, they were with his dive buddy, they were swimming, they're in, frigid water, he couldn't feel his hands, and he's just wants to give up, and his buddy next to him is in the same boat, and he looks at him, and he goes, "Hey, man, would you just mind peeing on my hands real quick?" And they, like, shared this joke, and he goes, "That's kinda what," and his buddy, he just said some quit back. He's like, "Well, I guess you're into that kind of thing." And think about it, these two guys are like, they are in a situation where they're literally ready to give up on the one thing they've wanted their entire lives. And just because they had each other there to joke with, to commiserate with, that's why they both pushed through. And if you are in a high stress environment where you don't have that other person, then you can just easily give up. That's just the human condition.
Very, very much so. So let's move on to number 3. And
Okay.
I gotta say, this one really surprised me. I was not expecting this. I did not think that that many people felt so strongly about iron sights and lanterns that run on fire. But the claim that battery powered items, particularly optics for firearms, are useless in an SHTF scenario.
That one really surprised me too. And this is kind of also an aggregate where there's a lot of people that just say, "Well, they're not going to work in an EMP," right? So I think there's a lot of this that the electronics themselves won't work, but also that why would you ever own anything that's battery powered? Because in an SHTF scenario, your batteries are going to die and that thing is going to be useless, and it's just a hunk of garbage. I was very surprised at how many people are willing to die on that hill.
It's wild to me. And we even touched on this in our EMP episode. What is the likelihood of an EMP actually being deployed in a hostile manner rather than targeting a city? It's the wasted weapon theory.
Right. Well, and let's not talk too much about EMPs because that might be on the list.
Yeah, that's a possibility. So let's talk about optics and specifically the key counter arguments for battery powered gear, right? So let's go over
Okay.
these and bust that myth. The biggest one for me is the immediate practical advantages outweigh potential long term issues, right? The statistical chances of a shit hits the fan scenario lasting longer than a 25-year battery or even a 5-year battery are infinitesimally small compared to the probability that some kind of SHTF or civil unrest is resolved in a much shorter time period. That is a long way of saying the odds of it happening and that battery dying are way lower than resolution.
Yeah. So
Uh,
you would rather have the tactical advantage and risk that maybe this thing's going to go on for a quarter century versus saying, I don't want to have that tactical advantage now because it is going to last for a quarter century.
exactly. That is
Yep.
nail on the head.
Yep.
The
I like that.
immediate the immediate life-saving benefits of modern gear during the initial and most chaotic phase of a crisis far often outweigh the theoretical risk of battery depletion much later, right?
That's one part of this that I didn't even think about. I know you're gonna get into, like, some battery technology stuff, but that's something that I didn't even think about. You're exactly right that saying, "I'm not gonna have the tactical advantage now because I wanna be able to fight this fight long term," when in real life, if there's a fight to be had, it's probably gonna be in that initial outbreak when there's more people, when people haven't, escaped the cities yet or whatever it is. But you're right, it's in that initial chaos is when you want that tactical advantage. And I myself am certainly willing to bet on that I want the tactical advantage early, and I'm going to bet my no advantage later on it.
Exactly. You don't want to handcuff yourself on a bet that you're going to, pull off that multi-leg parlay 25 years down the road.
Right.
You're going to get shot in the face before your handcuffs are off.
That's a
So
great way to put it, sure.
why bother? I mean, and when you look specifically at optics, right? Speed and accuracy. A red dot sight and magnified optic dramatically increase the speed and accuracy of target acquisition, especially when you're under stress, low light, long range shots. I mean, I can legitimately hit 1,000-yard target with iron sights. That doesn't mean that I don't want to scope,
Sure. Yep.
right?
It's a great way to put it, yep.
Situational awareness. Think about night vision. Night vision devices provide this critical capability for movement, defense, patrol during hours of darkness. We own the night is a saying in several different military communities, but we own the night. There's a reason for it because our night vision capabilities give us that decisive tactical advantage. Why are you handcuffing yourself by not purchasing night vision? If it's a budget thing, that's a totally different story. But if you have the money for it and are choosing not to, you are limiting your tactical capability. And then let's talk about battery life, right? Battery life is substantial and sustainable. Okay. Modern technology has significantly extended battery life. We are no longer stuck with just alkalines. Preppers can easily store and manage power supplies. Long shelf life, high quality lithium batteries like CR123As, they have a 10-year shelf life, and lithium batteries are super, super lightweight, which means they make long term storage feasible. The new Energizer lithiums, I think they've got a 20 or 25-year shelf life. They're just insane.
Yeah, I buy those by the box. I wanna say there's maybe 30 of them or something in the box. It's very expensive, but I just put them in the back of the safe, and in 25 years, that's still gonna be a battery.
Exactly. And if it did go dead, there's your slingshot ammo. You can just throw it at somebody.
Oh, there you go, I like that, slingshot ammo. Yeah.
Or if you're really adventurous and don't mind screwing up the barrel of your shotgun, CR123s will fit in a 20 gauge barrel.
Oh, I'm trying that.
I mean, you hit somebody with that, and that's an
Yeah.
electric charge you don't want. But um, grabbing a box of those, throw them in your safe for a rainy day. It just makes prepper sense. They are more expensive, but for $100 in AA, AAA, CR123, you can logistically have a decade of power for all of your optics right at your fingertips. It's just that simple. Um, a lot of modern red dot sights, they can run continuously for years on a single battery. And these are the ones they have what's called shake awake technology.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
or, or it's got a solar backup.
sure.
I know Holosun, they've got a solar backup to save battery.
Yep.
They're great optics. And as soon as you pull it up, it senses that shaking and it will turn itself on. And then, of course, we can't forget the rechargeable options. The use of a portable solar panel and a battery bank, that's going to let you recharge a lot of devices indefinitely, even if you don't have a grid. So if you're plugging into a solar charger and you charge up your laser or charge up your night vision or whatever you have. Even if you're recharging the AA and AAA batteries, they've got thousands of charging cycles available in. So uh, it's absolutely worth investing in. Now, redundancy and hybrid solutions, obviously, smart preppers build redundancy into their systems, right? Ensuring a failure of one component doesn't render the entire system useless. It's just the PACE model again: primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, right? This is two is one is none. We can talk about why backups and redundancy is key all day.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I get that what you're saying is you can still plan for backups and at the same time still know that battery powered things have a place on your rifle.
Exactly. So, backup iron sights. If you're really that concerned about an EMP, most modern firearm setups use battery powered optics in conjunction with traditional iron sights that can be quickly accessed. They just flip up. I have them on my rifles. I actually like having
Yep.
them.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. No, I
super
do too.
convenient. Dual power sources. A lot of the higher end optics and devices, they are going to be designed with a hybrid power system, like a solar panel or uh, fiber optic cables that suck in ambient light,
Hmm.
or even tritium, radioactive material that glows. And then scalability. Battery powered devices cover this broad spectrum of needs, from communication devices to medical equipment. It makes power management kind of a core competency skill of prepping, not just, I've got thousands of batteries. What do you need? Right. And just the argument that battery power is a fatal flaw in a shit hits the fan scenario, it overlooks the significant technological advancements and the ability to store power, as well as the use of redundant systems. The tactical and the practical advantages provided by these devices during a crisis, they're just immense. And I mean, as long as you plan for power management as a core part of your preparedness strategy. And then I guess one last point, you know, at the risk of getting morbid or depressing, sure, batteries aren't going to last forever in a cataclysmic Teotihuacan event, but neither will you. I mean, AC, you're mid to late 40s. I'm not that far behind you. If you bought enough 25-year shelf life batteries now, they would likely outlast both of us, especially in the absence of modern medical care.
That's actually a really good way to put it. You're right. That is kind of morbid to think about, but you're right. Like you could buy enough batteries. That technology exists that you could buy enough batteries to outlast you. You could easily, like you said, for $100 in Energizer lithiums. I do like those. We're not sponsored by Energizer, but man, they're just great because they're lightweight. They don't leak like the old NiCads, nickel metal hydrides, and they last forever. And for $100 in AA's, AAA's, and CR123s, man, you could just power your optics forever. I have on one of my uh kind of a short range, I think it's a pistol carbine. I have that. It's a Steiner optic that's it's kind of like a it's not a holographic. It is a red dot, but it's got a very interesting reticle on it. But I think on the two AA's, it lasts 25,000 hours. That's a ton.
What?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like that is forever. I don't know how many hours are in a year, 4,000 hours or something. I don't know. So yes, it's going to last. It's going to last basically forever on a couple of those lithium lithium AA's. So you could easily buy enough batteries for all of your optics to outlast you. That's pretty easy, and we could come up with the math pretty easily.
It's 8,760 hours per year. So that's a 3-year
Yeah.
battery
It's a
life on
3-year battery
constant
life.
usage.
Yeah, on constant usage on that optic, which is just crazy to think about. But that's how efficient LED technology is. And maybe that's it. Maybe the people that keep saying, "Oh yeah, your batteries are gonna die," maybe they're just people that are older and they just aren't familiar with what modern technology is doing between the LED technology and the lithium ion battery technology. It's come so far in just the last little bit.
So I think you're right there. I think that's kind of the prepper mentality versus the tinfoil hat or the conspiracy theorist mentality. And we kind of saw that shift happen uh, right at the New Year's Eve 2000.
Sure. Yeah, you're talking about the Y2K bug that never happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you had all of these people that the tinfoil hats, oh, everything is going to fail. It didn't. And part of that was because our infrastructure was set up to handle the Y2K bug. But our infrastructure, and especially with things like power technology, it continues to advance so much faster. You can't limit yourself to 2 decades ago and expect the same results.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think you're right. There are people that maybe got burned once and they said, "Yeah, you can't rely on batteries." But actually that's not the case anymore. Maybe at the time, maybe that was a valid argument 20 years ago that you just can't rely on that kind of tech, the battery tech, the LED tech. But it's just come so far that you truly can rely on that. And like you said, that's what backups exist for because nothing's 100%. But yes, I think you have sufficiently busted that myth that uh, a a battery powered optic is just useless in SHTF. I will call that busted.
I agree. So what else we got? I think we've got one more, right?
Yeah, we have one more in the first round of this draft on prepper myths, and for my last one, man, I cannot believe that this one is still alive. But dude, people really do come out of the woodwork to defend it a lot. People still think that a tampon in a bullet wound is a viable medical treatment. And it blows my mind that we have to bust this myth. But I'm telling you, we crowdsourced this. We talked to people, to preppers, and there is a huge swath of preppers that still think that a tampon belongs in your first aid kit for anything other than menstruation. So let's talk about that. I'm not,
I am hanging my head for those of you who can't see. I just uh
sad bald eagle noises right here. Uh, I'm telling you, okay, I'm not a medical professional, but I certainly have patched people up before. And if you want to hear this directly from a medical professional, please go listen to episode 35 with our friend Charlie. He is a U.S. Army combat paramedic, and he will tell you how silly and dangerous this myth is. And that was a great episode to do with him, and he did definitely help us bust this a little bit. But look, the tactical tampon is one of those survival myths that just won't die for some reason. But if you're serious about your med kit, you need to ditch the tampon. Tampons are designed for menstruation. And let's talk about how gross that is. This is slow, low pressure seepage, not traumatic hemorrhage, where blood is literally pumping out of an artery. Here is exactly why they fail when the stakes are high. One, absorption versus pressure. The goal with a gunshot wound isn't to soak up blood, it's to stop the flow. And the reality is, a standard tampon holds about 9 milliliters of blood, right? In a femoral artery bleed, you can lose somewhere between 500 to 1500 milliliters of blood very quickly. And
oh yes.
right? And the danger is a tampon acts like a sponge, not a dam. It pulls blood out of the vessel and into its fibers, which actually prevents the body from forming a stable clot. So the lack of surface area and internal leaking is a big thing here. Bullets don't just leave this neat little cute tunnel, they create cavitation, which is a large, like irregular shaped internal void. So this is that plug fallacy is what we're talking about. Even if the tampon fits in the hole, it won't fill that shattered tissue behind it. There's this hidden bleeding. You might see the hole plugged and think, hey, you're safe. But the person is actually bleeding internally into an empty cavity. So you are being tampoozled, okay? If you still think that this is viable. And here's the one funny thing I will say when we crowdsource this is I don't believe this or not, Chris. All of the women preppers know how a tampon works, and it's only men that are defending the Smith.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
it's dudes that are like, no, man, this one time I saw a paramedic and he had all these tampons in his first aid kit. Well, yeah, probably for menstruation is probably why they existed, but not to plug bullet wounds. It's crazy. There
Tampons are really great for bloody noses, though. I will say that.
You know what? I'm frequent to bloody noses. Like I'm from the Pacific Northwest. So if I go to a dry climate, when I go to the Arctic or when I go to like Las Vegas, I get bloody noses. And there's something called a nampon. And
Okay.
dude, you got to look them up. I carry them in my first aid kit. It's a little, it's this little kind of stick that is, it's almost, those compressed towels, you know what I'm talking about, where you get them wet and they just blow right up. It's like that material, but then it has some kind of hemostatic agent on it. So it's a little flat thing, uh, like the size of like almost like a tongue depressor, and you shove it up there in your nose and it bloats up, and then it has some hemostatic agent on it. They're called nampons. They are a real thing, and they definitely do help with the nosebleed. But again, a nosebleed isn't a bullet wound, and they are vastly different medical conditions. But
Yes,
yeah,
they are.
yeah, no, nampons are a real thing, man. Check them out. So there's also there's also this hygiene issue that tampons are sanitary, but they are not sterile. Shoving them into a deep, jagged wound is an express ticket to a massive infection and sepsis. I'm sorry, it's just the case. And then there's a fragment issue. Unlike specialized medical gauze like Quick Clot, tampons can shred and leave fibers behind. So without an X-ray detectable strip, surgeons might miss these fragments, leading to long-term complications. If you shove a tampon in there and then you do get someone medical help before they bleed out because you did a dumb thing, they may leave pieces of this tampon inside of them because it's not meant to be inside of them. Uh, we can also talk about poor economics of space. I do like to talk about the economics here. As a prepper, space in your IFAC is premium real estate. And one standard roll of Kerlix gauze is about 4 yards long. And that provides the same packing power as almost 36 tampons.
Whoa.
It's crazy, dude. And so there's just better alternatives. Even a clean cotton t-shirt ripped into strips provides more surface area, and it's pressure capable, which a tampon is not pressure capable. So tampons themselves, here's the last thing I'll say about these. They are meant to expand. So if you even managed to get this thing all the way inside of a wound and to the source of the bleed, which you won't, by the way, if you manage to do that, rather than sealing off the hemorrhage, they are specifically designed to open up. So you get it all the way in there, you get it to the bullet wound, and then they're going to blow up like a balloon. So when people say, this is the one argument I see online, people have said this when we talk about the tampon and the bullet wound, they say, well, if it's all I had, I would use it because it's better than nothing.
Right,
And
right.
that's actually untrue. It quite literally is worse than doing nothing. It it just is, because even if you could get to the source of this bullet wound, it wouldn't stop the bleeding. It would swell up and open up that wound more. So here's the prepper pro tip. If you have tampons in your bag, use them for starting fires or the nosebleed, like Chris said. That's a great one. But for anything else, here's what you want to do. Pressure, depending on where it is, but pressure is the big one. And a tourniquet Again, kind of depends where it is. If it's a neck wound, don't tourniquet that thing. And then hemostatic gauze, that quick clot. Those are the way to save somebody's life if you are trying to stop someone from bleeding out from a bullet wound. You've got pressure, you've got restrict the flow, hasty tourniquet first, deliberate tourniquet later, like Charlie taught us, and then using that hemostatic gauze. Those are the things you need to do to stop a bullet wound. A tampon just is not it. And I hope that is sufficiently busted. But we'll put some links, maybe, Chris, to the things we like to use instead of tampons, like a cat tourniquet and some good hemostatic gauze. Those are the two things that should be in your kit if you think that bullet wound is on your risk matrix.
And we'll definitely have some links to batteries and things like that as well. I will say I've got a buddy who lives on a ranch, and he shoots coyotes because of what they do.
Hmm.
Uh, but what he will do is he will take a tampon and soak it in chicken grease or chicken's blood. And then he'll go and tie that tampon string around the barbed wire fence and just let it hang as bait for the coyotes. And he'll pull in 5 or 6 a day that way.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, dog's nose is pretty amazing, right? So,
Oh, yes.
yeah, yeah, that's yeah, okay. So there are plenty of uses for tampons. Maybe they do exist in your kit somewhere, but just not for this thing, not for the stopping
Not
the
for a
bullet wound.
bullet wound or knife wound or anything
Right.
like that.
And
Not a good
when
idea.
when you said he shoots coyotes because of what they do, I was just picturing why, because they like ride rockets and stuff, and like they drop big boxes on roadrunners that say Acme, like you
Well,
know.
yeah, you gotta watch out for the calves too. I mean, you don't want a giant box of fireworks landing on your newborn calf.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, they carry boxes of fireworks into your perimeter, especially during fire season. Coyotes, man, they're just crazy. Um,
Assholes.
Assholes. So anyway, all right. I did we sufficiently bust those 4 myths?
I think we've crushed them. They're
I
done.
I think so, but I would love to hear from people, because this is one of those episodes that definitely could draw feedback from people. But if there is another reason why you could bust these myths, or if you do have a good counter argument for us on why you don't believe any 4 of these are myths, I'm happy to hear them. Let's have that discussion. That would be cool. So, uh, next week Next week, we are going to bust the 4 harder myths. So, out of the 8 we came up with, if you didn't hear yours on the list today, maybe that's because it was a pretty tough one to bust, because there were a lot of arguments for them. And maybe in some cases, there's even some viable arguments for them. But we will we will try our best to bust them. And then again, I do want to say, if you would like to get our blog emailed to you weekly, we send exactly 1 email a week. And so you can go to our website, scroll all the way down, you'll see a place where you can enter your email address to get on our blog list. And even if you don't want to get an email from us, there still is a new article that, written by yours truly, every week, drops on Sunday at stakeholderprepping.com. And we'll usually include links from the episode, any of the things that we said, hey, you should buy one of these, or hey, you could buy this off Amazon. You don't need to take notes. We've got links to those things if you did want to buy something that we talked about. And then, yeah, we'll kind of break down that episode every week in the blog. So anything kind of important we mentioned will generally be in the blog. Sometimes I forget, sometimes, like, I just forget some of the dumb stuff we talked about, but for the most part, I try to get it in there.
Well, and that's, eating your Cheerios with chopsticks. So,
That's right. Yeah, I need to try that. I don't know. But so then you just have a bowl of milk. I don't know. Like, it's not, the whole umami nature of the Cheerios is that you get milk and Cheerios at the same time. You're not just eating the Cheerios then drinking the milk, which you would have to do with chopsticks.
I don't know. Something to
Ooh,
figure out.
chopstick straw.
There we go.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Chopstick straw. Yep. I like it.
Well, definitely come back next week. We are going to do some more myth busting for you. But until then, remember, you are your own stakeholder, and we will see you then.